LibreOffice. Microsoft Office costs around $100 a year. Over a decade, that's roughly $1,000 just to write documents, make spreadsheets, and create presentations. And the weirdest part is that once the subscription ends, Microsoft suddenly acts like accessing your own files is a privilege, not a basic human right. And Office isn't even the expensive part anymore. Photoshop, Premiere Pro, cloud storage, productivity apps, a lot of people are quietly spending over $1,000 every year on software subscriptions without realizing it. At this point, half the internet runs on monthly payments and forgotten free trials. But here's the thing. A huge amount of paid software has free open source alternatives that do almost the same job without ads, limits, or random upgrade now reminders appearing like jump scares. And the easiest place to start music is LibreOffice. LibreOffice launched in 2010 as a fork of OpenOffice and is now maintained by the Document Foundation. It includes Writer for documents, Calc for W spreadsheets, Impress for presentations, plus tools for databases, diagrams, and equations. Basically, the entire Microsoft Office lineup, except nobody's asking for your credit card every 30 days. It opens and saves Word, Music Excel, and PowerPoint files, works fully offline, needs no account, and doesn't quietly send telemetry data into the void. Entire governments, including parts of France's military and Italy's defense ministry, have switched to it. And honestly, for 99% of users, it does everything they actually need. The only real limitation is that advanced Excel macros and complex PowerPoint animations can sometimes behave a little differently. But for students, freelancers, and small businesses, LibreOffice replaces a yearly subscription bill with exactly $0, which is a very competitive price. VLC Media Player. Most media players are fine until you try opening one weird file. That's usually the moment everything falls apart. Windows says the format isn't supported, QuickTime gives up immediately, and suddenly you're downloading something called Ultra Codec Player Pro Final _V7 from a website that looks medically unsafe. And this is exactly why VLC Media Player exists. VLC started in 2001 as a student project at École Centrale Paris, and somehow turned into the media player almost everyone eventually installs after their default one disappoints them. Its main advantage is simple. It plays basically everything: MP4, MKV, AVI, FLAC, MOV, obscure formats from 2006 that were probably created by one camcorder company and then abandoned forever. VLC opens them without complaining, and somehow it does all of this while staying incredibly lightweight. The entire program is under 50 megabytes and runs perfectly on machines that sound like they're fighting for survival every time a browser tab opens. But most people only use about 10% of what VLC can actually do. It can convert video and audio files, stream media over a network, sync subtitles frame by frame, record your screen, rip DVDs, and even play YouTube links directly inside the app. VLC isn't just a media player anymore. It's basically a Swiss Army knife for video files. Even the traffic cone logo has a lore behind it. It came from the developers apparently collecting traffic cones during university, which somehow makes perfect sense for VLC's energy. And honestly, the best description of VLC is this: if a file exists, VLC will probably play it. It's the cockroach of media players. Impossible to kill, works everywhere, and survives every format war humanity invents. DaVinci Resolve. For years, professional video editing basically meant paying Adobe every month and pretending the crashes were part of the creative process. Then there's DaVinci Resolve. Resolve is made by Blackmagic Design, which is a real profitable company that for some reason gives away one of the most powerful editing suites on the planet completely free. And not free trial free, actually free. What makes Resolve different is that it isn't just one tool. It's basically 4 professional apps fused together into a single program. You get video editing similar to Premiere Pro, Fusion for motion graphics and visual effects like After Effects, Fairlight for professional audio work, and the industry's favorite color grading system. The color tools are the big one here. Entire Hollywood films, including movies like John Wick, La La Land, and Deadpool, were color graded in Resolve. And the wild part is that the free version already includes around 95% of what most people need. The paid studio version mainly adds advanced noise reduction, some AL features, and a few music higher-end AI export options. So, yes, technically, you can download free software today and edit a movie with the same platform used in actual cinema productions, which feels slightly unfair to everyone still paying monthly subscriptions. The downside is that Resolve expects your computer to have a decent GPU, and the learning curve is very real. Opening it for the first time can feel like accidentally entering a NASA control room. But for YouTubers, students, filmmakers, and content creators, this replaces editing, VFX, audio, and color software that would otherwise cost hundreds of dollars every year. OBS Studio. If you've ever watched a live stream, gaming video, podcast, tutorial, or apology video filmed with suspiciously good lighting, there's a very high chance it was running through OBS Studio. Released in 2012, OBS became the standard tool for streamers because it solved a simple problem. People needed professional video production without spending television studio money. And somehow, the free open source option ended up being better than most paid competitors. OBS works through a scene-based system. You can layer your screen capture, webcam, browser tabs, overlays, alerts, images, audio sources, basically anything, and switch between them live. It turns your computer into a real-time production studio instead of just the thing with Chrome open. It records in extremely high quality, streams to almost every platform, and has a massive plug-in ecosystem. Virtual cameras, Stream Deck integration, NDI support, advanced audio tools. If there's something you want OBS to do, someone has probably already made a plugin for it at 3 a.m. fueled entirely by caffeine and Linux music enthusiasm. And this isn't niche software either. Pretty much every major streamer has used OBS at some point. Beyond streaming, people use it for tutorials, gameplay recording, podcasts, online classes, and even virtual meetings through OBS Virtual Camera. Which means, yes, technically, your next Zoom call can have scene transitions for absolutely no reason. The only real downside is the first 10 minutes. Opening OBS for the first time feels confusing because there are buttons everywhere and none of them explain themselves. But once it clicks, it becomes incredibly powerful. And compared to tools like XSplit, Streamlabs Ultra, or Camtasia, OBS saves anywhere from $60 while somehow still being the better product. GIMP. Before subscription-based photo editing became the industry standard, there was short for GNU Image Manipulation Program. Launched in 1996, which means it's older than Google, YouTube, and probably some people watching this video. At its core is a full raster graphics editor. Layers, masks, filters, brushes, selections, photo retouching, digital painting, all the core image editing tools are here. With plugins, it can even handle raw photo files and even Photoshop PSD projects. So for things like thumbnails, social media graphics, web assets, or general photo editing, covers most of what people actually need. Over the years, the community has added extra filters, tools, interface improvements, and workflow upgrades that push it much further than the default install. Now, is it as polished as Photoshop? Not exactly. The interface can feel a little dated. Some Photoshop shortcuts and habits don't transfer cleanly, and the lack of native CMYK support is still annoying for print designers. Sometimes feels like software designed by extremely talented people who slightly underestimated the importance of looking normal. Honestly, I think gets unfairly hated. Yes, the interface looks like it was designed in a Linux form from 2004, but once you stop expecting it to be Photoshop and start treating it as its own thing, it does the job. And that's the important part, because Photoshop now costs around $260 a year, while costs nothing. No subscription, no login, no cloud integration trying to become your personality. Audacity. If your video looks bad, people might forgive it. If your audio sounds bad, they're gone immediately. And that's why Audacity has survived for over 25 years. Released in 2000, Audacity became the default free audio editor for basically the entire internet. Podcasts, YouTube voiceovers, music demos, school projects, random microphone disasters. If audio needed fixing, chances are Audacity was involved somewhere. At its core, it's a multi-track audio editor and recorder. You can cut clips, remove background noise, normalize volume, apply EQ and compression, add effects, and clean up recordings that sounded terrible 5 minutes earlier. It also exports to pretty much every format people actually use, including MP3, WAV, FLAC, and OGG. And despite looking simple, there's a surprising amount of power underneath. Audacity supports VST and LV2 plugins, meaning you can expand it with professional audio tools used in actual music production workflow. For creators, this matters a lot. A decent microphone helps, but good audio editing helps even more. Now, to be fair, Audacity did hit controversy in 2021 after concerns about telemetry and data collection updates. The backlash was immediate, and most of the concerns were later clarified or scaled back. But it's still part of the software's history worth mentioning, honestly. And compared to tools like Adobe Audition or Hindenburg Pro, Audacity replaces software that can cost anywhere from $95 to $240 without putting basic audio cleanup behind a paywall. Blender. For a long time, professional 3D software was locked behind absurd pricing. If you wanted to work in animation, VFX, or game development, you were expected to pay thousands of dollars for tools like Maya, Cinema 4D, or ZBrush before you even made your first cube spin dramatically in empty space. Then there's Blender. Blender started in 1994 at a Dutch animation studio, and in 2002, it became open source after the community literally crowdfunded 100,000 euros to free the software, which is still one of the most dramatic save the app moments in tech history. Today, Blender is a complete 3D production pipeline. Modeling, sculpting, rigging, animation, simulations, rendering, video editing, even 2D animation through Grease Pencil. It's all built into one application, and this isn't hobby software anymore. Blender has been used in real productions, including shots in Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. While Netflix's next gen was made entirely in Blender, it also includes two powerful render engines, Cycles for realistic rendering and Eevee for fast real-time music previews. The catch is the learning curve. Blender is absolutely the hardest program on this list to learn. Opening it for the first time feels like someone handed you the cockpit of a 747 and walked away. There are buttons inside of buttons, menus that lead to menus. It's genuinely overwhelming, but the people who push through and end up making things that look like Pixar shorts. Blender replaces software suites that can cost thousands every year, and somehow the free part still surprises people. Obsidian. Most note-taking apps today want your notes in the cloud, connected to an account, synced through a subscription, and somehow also integrated with Al for reasons nobody asked for. Obsidian goes in the opposite direction. Released in 2020, during the whole second brain productivity movement, Obsidian became popular because it treats your notes like actual files instead of content trapped inside a service. Everything is stored locally on your computer using simple markdown text files. No account required, no internet needed, no loading spinner just to open grocery lists. The feature that made people obsessed with it is bidirectional linking. You can connect the notes to other notes like a personal knowledge web. And Obsidian visualizes those relationships through a graph view that makes your brain look either incredibly organized or mildly concerning. And because the community is huge, the plugin ecosystem exploded. There are now over 1,500 plugins for things like calendars, flashcards, task management, Al tools, writing workflows, and basically every productivity system humans have invented to avoid actually doing work. The main downside is syncing. Obsidian's sync costs extra. Otherwise, you'll need to manually set up Dropbox, iCloud, or another workaround. But for students, researchers, writers, and people tired of apps getting slower every update, Obsidian replaces services like Notion, Evernote, and Roam Research while keeping your notes fully under your control, which honestly feels weirdly refreshing in 2026 when even calculator apps want you to make an account. Scratch. Most programming languages start by throwing a wall of symbols at you and hoping you don't panic. Scratch takes a very different approach. Developed by the MIT Media Lab and launched in 2007, Scratch teaches programming through visual blocks instead of typed code. You drag pieces together like digital Lego, and those blocks control animations, games, stories, and interactive projects. And even though it looks simple, the logic underneath is real programming. loops, variables, conditions, events, functions. The same concepts professional developers use are all here, just without the part where one missing semicolon destroys your entire afternoon. Because it runs directly in the browser, schools around the world adopted it quickly. No installation, no setup nightmares, no it works on my computer situations. Today, the platform has over 100 million shared projects, which means Scratch accidentally became one of the largest programming communities on Earth. It looks like a toy, it isn't. And honestly, a huge number of younger developers started here. It's not trying to turn kids into software engineers overnight, it's teaching computational thinking in a way that actually feels approachable. So, while paid coding platforms charge yearly subscriptions for beginner programming lessons, Scratch gives people a real first step into coding completely free. And for a lot of developers, this is where the entire rabbit hole started. Godot. For years, indie game development was dominated by Unity and Unreal Engine. Then, Unity made one very impressive business decision in 2023. It united the entire game industry against Unity. That controversy pushed massive attention toward Godot, an open-source game engine that had quietly been growing for years. Godot uses the MIT license, which basically means you can build and sell games with it and pay absolutely nothing in royalties. No revenue cuts, no surprise fees, no executives suddenly inventing new pricing rules at 2 a.m. The engine supports both 2D and 3D development and uses a scene and node system that makes projects surprisingly organized once it clicks. Developers can use GD script, which feels similar to Python, or switch to C# if they prefer. And this isn't just experimental indie software anymore. Games like Cassette Beasts, Brotato, and Dome Keeper shipped successfully using Godot. Now, Brotato and Dome Keeper shipped successfully using Godot. Now, to be fair, Godot's 3D tools still lag behind Unreal Engine in some areas, and its ecosystem is smaller than Unity's. But for indie developers, hobbyists, and smaller studios, the trade-off is worth it. Because Unity Pro costs thousands per year. Unreal takes royalties after or threshold. Godot takes nothing, ever, which suddenly became a very attractive feature after 2023. Godot is the most quietly important project on this entire list. Not because it's the best at everything, it isn't, but because it's the only major engine where the people making games actually own what they make. That used to be normal. It isn't anymore. Honorable mentions, Handbrake. If you've ever recorded a video and somehow ended up with a 10 gigabyte file for 3 minutes of footage, you already understand why Handbrake exists. Handbrake is a free video converter and compressor that takes massive files and shrinks them down dramatically while keeping quality surprisingly intact. It supports batch processing, device presets, codec conversion. This is the tool people use before uploading to YouTube. Instead of paying for converters like Movavi or Wondershare UniConverter, Handbrake does the same job for free. 7-zip. At this point, 7-zip is less of an app and more of a survival requirement for using Windows. It's a file compression tool that opens basically every archive format: zip, RAR, tar, ISO, and its own 7Z format, which usually compresses files even better than normal zip folders. It also supports encryption and password-protected archives. So, whether you're extracting downloads, compressing folders, or opening random files from the internet that looks slightly suspicious, 7-zip is the tool quietly doing the work in the background. And unlike WinRAR, 7-zip is actually free. Not free if you ignore the pop-up for the next 14 years. And when you add all of this together, the numbers get kind of ridiculous. Office software, photo editing, video production, streaming tools, coding platforms, game engines, media utilities. This stack replaces thousands of dollars of software every year for exactly $0. The trade-off is mostly time. Free software usually asks you to learn a little more instead of paying to make things simpler. But honestly, for most people, that trade is completely worth it. So, which one of these is already on your computer and which one are it? So which one of these is already on your computer and which one are you installing after this video? Drop it in the comments. If this finally made the free software world make sense, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one.